Good morning. Good morning. I am Apostle and Prophet Marcella Taylor of Prophets of the Nations. On yesterday, the Lord had me to release part of my testimony of how He delivered me from sexual immorality and everything that went with it. Masturbation, pornography, everything that is attached to sexual immorality. I dealt with. And so please go back and watch part one to get an understanding of how it all began. I wanted to bring forth some clarity in one of I think it was the latter part of my testimony. I was talking about how the Lord did not allow a man to touch me, and I wanted to bring clarity. My overseer brought this to my attention, and I thank God for her, and I received what she had said to me about making some things, bringing clarity for some things, so people will have a true understanding of what I meant when I said that the Lord did not allow man to touch me for a long time because of He was purifying me from sexual immorality, and until it was time for me to become a wife. So He was purifying me, and He was keeping me pure and whole until He brought my God-ordained husband into my life. And that is when God allowed a man to touch me, is when He brought my God-ordained husband into my life. So I wanted to bring clarity before that, and I thank my overseer for bringing that to my attention. Thank God for coverings. Sometimes it's hard to receive some things, but because when you are having to release your testimony, it's just hard enough to even release it when you are a private person. And see, me being a private person, it really is hard, but I know that it is necessary because there are people out there that need to hear my testimony. So I wanted to make that clear, that the Lord, when He took me through my season of purification, and He did not allow man to touch me in an inappropriate way or intimately, because He was preparing me, excuse me, for my God-ordained husband, because I had got ahead of him in marriage so many times. I got ahead of God in different areas of my life, and marriage was one of them. And each marriage that I entered into, I had sex before marriage. I always put the man before God. And it cost me. It cost me dearly. It cost me in my body, my mind, my spirit, my soul. Because when you form a soul, when you become one with someone intimately through sex, you form a soul tie that is spiritual, supernatural, and only God can set you free from that soul tie. So the people that we end up being intimate with, we form soul ties with them, and we connect with them and everybody that they've connected with spiritually. And so that's why we have to do it God's way, through a God-ordained union. When God brings the God-ordained union together, it is because He knows what's best for us. We don't. And so because I married ahead of God, I paid a price because I did not wait on God, and because it was each one of my marriages until I got it right. But the previous marriages, excuse me, were out of sexual immorality. And it didn't matter that they were believers, because they were dealing with things also. We have to realize that just because someone is a believer, it doesn't mean that that's who God has for you. It doesn't mean that's who God has for you. So We have to allow God to bring our mates to us. We have to allow God to deliver and set us free. We can't play games with God, because when we continue to play games with God, then that is how the enemy will get in. God delivered and set me free from sexual immorality, but it did not happen overnight. It did not happen overnight. It came at a high price for me because I was so deep in. But he brought me through, and he performed a miracle in my life because I'd always put me in ahead of him. And when he took me, when I had finally had a made up mind to serve God, and when he took me through my season of purification, it was hard because God had to dig all of that out of me. He had to get it all out of me, clean me out, because it had been deep rooted in me. And that's a lot of us when those doors are open through sexual immorality, through rape, or through fornication, or however the enemy is able to enter into our lives through sexual immorality. It runs deep, because the longer that we stay in it, the deeper that sin is, the deeper that bondage is, and God has to clean us out. And that's what he had to do for me. He had to clean me out. But I allowed it. And I remained celibate during this time. He kept me to myself. I was very careful with what I watched, what I focused on, what I allowed myself to come in contact with, because I knew that that was a very sensitive area for me. So as I said before, we have to be careful what we watch when God is taking us through our season of purification, through deliverance from sexual immorality. We have to make sure we're not giving the enemy any place at all. He cleaned me out, and it cleaned. I mean, it helped me to form a bond with my Father, my Jesus, and my Holy Spirit. And I said earlier, I always wanted to be married, and when I had God those 2 times because of sexual immorality. After the second time, I said, Lord, I don't want to be married anymore. I just want to dedicate my life to you. But the Lord had said to me, it is not my will for you to be single. I called you to be a wife. I was running because I didn't want to mess up anymore. So I ran. I ran from marriage. But for 3 years, I ran. When God let me know that he wanted me to be a wife, I was like, I can't do it, Lord, because I don't want to sin against you again in this area. I was afraid that I would mess up in this area, because I know that the first 2 marriages that I was in were built on sexual immorality. And I did not want to disappoint my Father, seeing how far he had brought me, how he delivered and set me free. But I realized that I had to go through it to get to where God wanted me to be. I couldn't run. I had to stand, and I had to let God do what he needed to do in me so that I could be the wife that God called me to be. Did I allow God to do what he needed to do? Yes. Did he bring my God-ordained husband? Yes. Did we have sex before marriage? No. Did we put ourselves in an inappropriate position? No. Because God had did a work in me, and he had delivered and set me free. And the same way that he did for me, he will do for you. Let him. Men and women of God, those that are dealing with sexual immorality, those that are dealing with homosexuality, those that are dealing with perversion, lust, whatever your vice is, whatever that area is, as far as sexual immorality, let God deliver you and set you free. I am your testimony. I am your testimony. He delivered and set me free from sexual immorality. And now all I want to do is please him and live for him. I have no problem with when it comes to sexual morality. Why? The enemy can't use it against me any longer. He can't hold it over my head, because I allow God to set me free. God bless. and let God set you free too. See you soon.